We approach the temple and contact Fynch. He asks us to not just throw his name out there in order to not alert the other hive of our newly found friendship. I decide to honor this fair enough request. After clearing out the mobs chilling at the entrance, we ask Fynch for some more details. Apparently we're looking for Sagira, Osiris' ghost. Xivu Arath somehow backed Sagira into a corner, but Savathun was the one who actually found her shell, which allowed her to impersonate Osiris. This actually explains how Savathun was able to trick someone as adept as Ikora and increases our connection towards this mission. This is most likely already known information, but the way it is mentioned and integrated into the story and dialogue is much more natural and is attached towards our overall goal. Our ghost is still suspicious of Fynch though, especially since he was so trusting towards us. I can't help but agree. Fynch could totally still be a part of Savathun's plans, and we could be playing straight into her hands. We don't actually know if Fynch is even the ghost of that random hive knight, or is just using it as cover. This lines up with our ghost's general distaste for hive ghost. Fynch says that they are also taking a huge risk in trusting us, which is a fair rebuttal. Fynch betraying the hive is a spooky prospect, and is most likely taking a huge toll on his mental. We place down our campaign banner and enter the Temple of the Wrathful. Numerous hive are occupying this area, and we must clear them out. I ended up dying to the Slightbearer Acolyte for no good reason. I didn't need to get as close as I did, and using a rocket launcher at this range was also not the play. I died a second time for pretty much the same reason. Being in the air makes you quite the easy target, especially since I'm pretty bad at making sure Fire Slap secures the kill, which ties in with my whole Sun Bracers and Solar Grenade cooldown. After taking care of both Light-Bearing Hive, the third time around, some more Scorn ambush us, but the encounter has technically ended. Our ghost turns into the Joker as we destroy other ghosts. However, the fact that ghosts can even transform into a hive variation should give our ghost some pause in this super aggressive line of thought. Fynch points out that by that logic, he should also be crushed into pieces. Ghost suggests that perhaps we should, especially if he turns back to the hive. Fynch accuses our ghost of judging hive ghosts too harshly. Our ghost justifies its thought process by saying how ghosts joining the hive was a choice that they made. Fynch responds with a pretty good line that relates to the overall themes of the Light and Darkness saga. Making a choice doesn't always mean you have multiple options. This line has much more meaning behind it than just being a surface level rebuttal. We as a Guardian didn't choose to become a Lightbearer. Our ghost made that choice. And even in that choice, we don't know how much of a choice that was just based on what we know about ghosts. The very first line of dialogue our ghost said to us when we woke up for the first time was something along the lines of, "I don't know how long I've been looking for you." Why would our ghost be looking for us? Why did it not choose to revive another body? This same question can be asked for all the other ghosts as well, hive included. This one line questions the entire nature of ghosts, which is why I think it's pretty good. Fynch proceeds to be much more socially aware than our ghost, and compromises just a little bit with its philosophy. Fynch expresses some regret at its previous actions in becoming entangled with the hive. Perhaps not every action he took wasn't the most moral of choices, and while some of them do deserve what's coming, he, at the very least, is trying to learn from his past mistakes in order to become a better version of itself. There is definitely plenty of merit in this statement. As a hive ghost, Fynch is already operating with a different moral framework. To the hive, us Guardians are basically the bad guys. However, if he has since discovered flaws based on how he operates, and wishes to change that for what both he and we consider the better, then is that not for the best? Besides, it is better to accept and learn from your past mistakes and failures in order to grow, rather than just letting them consume you. This ties in with the overall themes first presented in Beyond Light. The light is not necessarily always good, and the darkness is not automatically bad. This argument gets our ghost to at least consider changing its mind later. We exit the cave and stumble upon a Scorn Walker. For some reason, the game really wants me to get on these heavy pikes, but I avoid doing so. After finding some cover, I drop my Well of Radiance and clear out the ads. After that, I focus on the Walker. The Scorn Walker actually has an additional mechanic attached to it, and upon breaking its leg, it actually produces a barrier which requires us to enter close quarters. The Walker is still stunned during this time, but as soon as it starts to recover, additional enemies spawn and we're in the middle of them. I could have run away much sooner, but because I could respawn, getting instant deleted here doesn't really matter too much. I take care of the walker after I respawn, and am now able to continue on. A shimmering chieftain alongside some adds are protecting a crystal. We kill them before being able to break it. This action opens the door. Our ghost reiterates our mission objective, just in case we forgot what we were here for. Fynch confirms that the information he told us has actually not changed, and that we are still doing what we agreed to do, and that this is not a trap. How useful. This is where Ikora re-enters the conversation. Our ghost called her in for backup and introduces her to Fynch. However, Fynch somehow already knows who Ikora is, and even expresses desire of wanting to join the Vanguard. I never thought about it, but I suppose the Hive are able to communicate with each other, so word about the Vanguard and their major leaders having spread isn't the craziest of ideas. Of course, I highly doubt that Fynch always wanted to join the faction that has been killing the species he's a part of. This does make me want to know more about the specific incident that caused Fynch to turn tailcoat though. He alluded to growing suspicious of the Witch Queen, but it was incredibly vague and practically gave us no information. I continue jumping onto the platforms that spiral the spire and make my way into an arena where some Scorn are participating in a ritual. Of course, we know the way to stop these are to destroy the empowering crystals. Each one is protected by a shield and requires us to take care of the respective shimmering captains first. With them dead, we can destroy the crystal attached to the barrier and descend the well. I didn't realize that I had to jump and take full fall damage. However, there is a campaign banner, so that didn't really matter anyway. Our ghost points out the giant Scorn, but I didn't see it, so I suppose it was the only place I didn't look, which was below the barrier further down the well. Our objective is to navigate the labyrinth, and our only hint are some dark passageways deeper into the cavern, alongside some hive symbols. I run into the first passageway, and almost die to some luminous eyes, aka Shriekers. It takes me a little longer than it should have, but I take care of the first two Shriekers, and can head deeper in. Of course, there's a third Shrieker. I kill it, but find nothing inside the lit temple area. Since I couldn't do anything here, I made my way back to the center. It was here that I spotted Brutix Lightbane, the giant Scorn our ghost pointed out. He has a shield around him, and that is no doubt attached to the Hive runes mechanic that I am working on figuring out. I run into the Hive symbol that I will refer to as the businessman. Let me know what you ended up calling all these symbols. In this dark passageway, I am rushed down by some Ravagers. Of course, instead of heading deeper in, I ended up getting lost in the dark and run back to the middle. I find the same symbol, but it leads to a different part of the cave. In here, there are a bunch of stalkers that I need to clear first. With them dead, I'm able to run into the back of the room and destroy the first crystal. The Lightbane still has its shield, but some additional eyes have spawned in. I run back into the first businessman's symbol. This time around, I managed to navigate my way into some side room. I dropped down my well of radiance and killed Az and Shimmering Captain in order to destroy this area's crystal. I run into the third hallway with the same symbol and immediately die to some screams as I snap my fingers. What can I say? My reaction speed is just too fast and my skill level is too high. Anyway, I can start round 2 with the proper knowledge this time around. Now, I can start off by running directly into the screams and dying. Truly a next level play. At least now I know that the screams spawn in this left corridor. I ended up skipping the campaigner this time around because I didn't use my abilities last time, so there was no point in refreshing them. This time, I don't just int into the screams and take care of them at a distance. I'm able to make my way into the back and can take care of the captain and shield. There are still a couple of screws haunting the hallways, so I make sure to stay especially aware as I make my way back out. The Apex Predator takes care of the second Shimmering Captain, but there isn't a crystal, leaving me a little confused this time around. Since there isn't anything for me to do here, I head towards the third entrance with the symbol, and just like my first attempt, the second crystal is here. I run back into the middle room, and the fourth crystal appears in the middle. I guess I ended up destroying the crystal with the splash damage of the Apex Predator, and didn't realize it in the second room. In any case, destroying this giant crystal forces the Lightbane to retreat deeper down, and ends our encounter. Our ghost reminds us that the Scorn are typically a mindless bunch, but the ones we're fighting are much more organized than normal. which increases their overall threat. Ikora repeats this bit of information in order to really drive home this point that they've already repeated. Very cool. Our ghost at least progresses the conversation by suggesting that they are probably being influenced by a group known as the Fanatic. Fynch somehow also knows of this faction, along with its leader, Fikril, the former leader of the Barons. Ikora thinks this is an okay guess, since he was driven from the Tangled Shore not long ago, probably because Bungie removed that location from their game. Fynch doesn't agree. In order to bolster his point, he points out how the Stone World is bathed in Savathun's light, and thus keeps the darkness out. This hints at to why we are even in the Throne World, and why Savathun hasn't kicked us out. Perhaps because we are light bearers, she isn't able to properly track us. The Scorner creatures aligned with the darkness, and thus, finding them here is suspicious. Ikora agrees and now thinks that we don't know what we're dealing with. Personally, I think everyone is just overthinking this situation. Since this is Savathun's throne world, isn't Savathun just the one behind his Scorn in the first place? She's the god of cunning, so her tasking the Scorn to go do something could pretty easily be the most plausible of solutions. Classic Occam's razor situation. Nonetheless, in order to progress, we obtain some deep sight, which is still unexplained, and can jump onto some new platforms. This allows me to descend even deeper. Here is where we find the shell of Sagira bound by some hive magic. We place down our campaign banner, and Brutix, Lightbane, reappears. It's clear that they have set up some sort of ambush in this place. At first, I try to run into one of the hallways, but realize that there is nothing there, and that a shimmering captain spawned in the middle of the room. I take care of it with some pumps of my shotgun and can destroy the first crystal. This drops the Lightbane's shield and allows me to deal damage to him, although I take care of the ads first. I plop down my Well of Radiance and then hit Brutix with one rocket of my Bane's which procced Apex Predator. This instantly takes us to the second phase. I know my solar grenades did some damage earlier while I was clearing the ads, but the damage output on this weapon is a little ridiculous as long as I make sure to proc the perk. I make my way towards the first symbol and kill the Shivering Chieftain protecting the crystal. Yes, I called them captains earlier, my bad, but I've corrected it now. After that, I worked my way towards the second crystal. Instead of just using my shotgun, I decided to get it twisted and pulled out my rocket launcher in close quarters. This ends exactly as you would expect. Okay, this time around, I just need to not kill myself, a task that is a little harder than I would like. The first Chieftain and Crystal go down pretty smoothly. Riddick dropped my HP down pretty low and I decided to play it safe, so I dropped my Well. Another Apex rotation takes us to the second phase. The first symbol actually ends up spawning right on top of me. This confused me for a couple of seconds, but as soon as I realized what was happening, I turned around. I maintained proper distance this time, and, of course, as I strafe bunny hop backwards, as soon as I pull out my rocket launcher to fire a shot, some random floating hive pillar blocks my vision. This causes me to suffer another completely unnecessary death, and is what I would officially call a brother moment. I actually took a couple of moments to clear my head and to figure out why I actually died. I know now why, but at the time it was so dark that I didn't actually see the object, even upon death, so I assumed that I was simply too close to the enemy once again. I misclicked and accidentally dropped my Well of Radiance early instead of just Phoenix diving to the ground. Because of this mistake, I decided to play it a little safe and bait the Lightbane into one of the carved out rooms. This was so I could take care of the ads that spawned in the middle, while maintaining a safe distance from Brutix. That was a factor I was paying super close special attention to. I proceeded with phase 2 and managed to not kill myself this time around. With those 3 crystals gone, I can DPS Brutix and enter the third and final phase. Nothing changes this time around from the second phase. We just have to go through another rotation. I really think that this is where Brutix should have entered some sort of enraged mode and chased us down into the side rooms themselves. Being able to avoid him in those rooms completely made his presence much less threatening overall. Okay, like a lot less threatening, significantly. Every time there's a boss in the middle of the room and they aren't an ogre, they always end up being a non-presence. Brutix should be faster or chase us down harder instead of being so easy to avoid. After the shield drops, I drop down my Well of Radiance since it's recharged, and take care of Brutix with one rotation of my bait and switch Apex Predator. This ends the encounter. Our ghost points out that while Brutix was especially strong for a Scorn, it was not a Baron. This is concerning, as it still managed to reach the same tier of power. Fynch doesn't want us to stick around any longer than we should though. Thus, we decide to grab Sagira and scram.
I stand before a being with 1,000 names. It whispers one. The witness. Remember him.
However, upon doing so, Savathun's voice echoes out. She makes sure to make it a point to remember that name. Our ghost first asked if anyone else besides us heard what was just said. Ikora and Fynch confirmed that they heard it too. Our ghost then asked if they have heard of the witness. Ikora has never heard of that name before, which makes this an actual mystery. Fynch also doesn't know, and based on everything we know about him, he should be in the know if he knew. Although Fynch doesn't know, he's excited that we have at least found a lead. Our ghost is more excited at the fact that Fynch wasn't lying to us though. Of course, I still have to ask, how did Fynch even acquire this information in the first place? Why was he privy to such information? Why was Sagira even in this temple? And what was Savathun's plan with her? We don't get any answers to these questions, but Fynch is sure to remind us that he just wants to unravel whatever devious scheme Savathun is up to for some reason. Well, we know the reason, it's just like, I'm casting doubt and suspicion on his reason. Ikora has a theory on why we heard a voice from Sagira, and urges us to return to her as soon as possible. She even congratulates and thanks us at the very end. This ends the mission, and we return to Mars. Check out my channel for the rest of my videos, and consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Aside from that, I will see y'all in 2 days. Good night.